What's going on everyone? Welcome to the second tutorial in the Python intermediate series. In the previous tutorial we looked at class methods and static methods, and in this tutorial we are going to look at inheritance, which is also related to classes. So inheritance basically allows a class to access functions of another class. So let's say we have two classes, class A and class B, and class B inherits class A. So because of inheritance, class B can now access all the functions inside class A. So that is the basic definition of inheritance. So let's get started. But before we look at an actual example, let's look at a simple example to get a better understanding of how inheritance works. So let's say we have two classes, class A, and class A has one function, and we'll name it function 1. And inside the function, let's print function 1. And let's say the second class we have is class B. And inside class B, we have one function. And we'll name this function function 2. And let's print function 2. So now we have two classes, class A and class B. So let's say I want to use the function of class A. So I want to use function 1 inside class B. There are two options. I can copy this function and paste it inside class B, which will waste memory and also it is inefficient. Or we can use inheritance to access functions of class A. And to use inheritance after the class name, we can use round brackets. And inside the round brackets, you pass the class that you want to inherit. So we want to inherit class A. So we'll pass A. So now class B inherits class A. Therefore class A is the parent class and class B is the child class. So the class that inherits another class is called as child class, and the class that is being inherited, so class A, is called as a parent class. So now let's look at how we can use class B to access the functions inside class A. And to do that, we are going to need the object of class B. So let's say z equals B. And to access the functions inside class A, we can directly use the object. So z dot function 1 and z dot function 2. So let's run this. And you can see we are able to access function 1 and function 2 using the object of class B. So when using inheritance, you need to remember one thing. Only the class that inherits can access the functions of another class. So in this case, only class B can access the functions of class A, but class A cannot access the functions of class B. Now let's say we have a third class. So let's say class C. And this class inherits class B. And let's add a function 3. And let's print the same message. So function 3. So in this case, class C inherits class B and class B inherits class A. Therefore class C will now be able to access all the functions inside class B and class A. So we can test this by creating an object of C. So let's say we create an object cat equals the class name. And now we can use this object to access all the three functions. So cat dot function 1. And I will just copy paste this and change the function names. So let's run this. And sure enough, we are able to access all the three functions with the object of class C. Another thing that we can do is inherit multiple classes. So let's say we inherit class A and class B, and we remove the inheritance of class B. So now class A and class B are separate classes. And if we run this code, class C should be able to access the functions of class A and class B. So let's run this and see if it works. And sure enough, it works. We are able to access the functions of class A, class B, and also class C. So this is called as multiple inheritance because we are inheriting multiple classes. And in the first example, when class B inherits class A, it is called as single level inheritance. And in the second example, when class B inherits class A and class C inherits class B, it is called as multi-level inheritance. So these are the three types of inheritance: single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance, and multiple inheritance. So now let's look at an actual example where we'll use the init function, and we'll also look at an inbuilt function which is called as super. So let's clean this up. So you will mostly use inheritance when the classes are related to each other. So let's say we have a class pet, and inside the class we have an init function. So Dunder init. And the init function takes one parameter, so name. And let's create an instance variable. So self.name equals name. And let's also create another function, so def. And let's say we name the function sleeps. So all the pets, at least on earth, do sleep, so we'll use this function. So let's print the name and is sleeping. So this is the pet class, and we'll use this class as a parent class. And the second class we are going to create is dog. And inside the dog class we can create a function, let's say says, and the dog barks, so let's print barks. And we forgot to inherit pet class, so pet. So now let's create the object of class dog, and let's say d equals dog. So now as class dog inherits class pet, we are also able to access the Dunder init function similar to other functions. So inside the round brackets we can directly pass the name of the dog. So let's say Tom, and let's call our functions, so sleeps and says, and let's run this. Okay, so I forgot the self in the says function, and let's run this. And I also forgot self in the sleeps function, so let's do that, and let's run this. And now as you can see, we are able to access the init function and also the sleeps function and also the says function in the dog class. So you can directly access the init function of the class that you are inheriting, and you can see we are doing just that. We are able to pass the name Tom to the init function of the pet class. So similar to other functions, the init function can also be accessed when a class is inherited. Now let's say we have the same sleeps function inside the dog class as well. So let's say def sleeps, and let's print the dog is not sleeping. Now we have the same sleeps function in the dog class and the pet class. So let's run the code and see what it does. And you can see it calls the sleep function from the dog class. So this is because when using inheritance, Python first searches the function in the child class, and if the function is not present in the child class, it will look for the function in the parent class. So in our case, we have the function sleeps inside the child class. Therefore, Python executed this function and ignore the function in the parent class. So this is another thing to remember. When you have two functions with the same name, Python will always first search the child class for the function or the variable and then the parent class. So now let's look at the inbuilt function, which is super. And let's create another class. So let's say class cat. And inside the function we also have an init function, so def. And the cat class also inherits from the pet class. And inside the Dunder init, let's take two parameters, so name and say. So inside the pet class, we already have an init function that creates an instance variable for the name parameter. So instead of creating an instance variable in this init function, we can use the super function and pass the name parameter into the init function of the parent class. And we can directly say name. And we'll need to create the instance variable for the second parameter. So self.say equals say. And let's print inside the init function. So let's say self.name says and self.say. So the super function in Python can call the functions inside the parent class. So that is what we are doing. We are calling the init function of the pet class. We only have a single parameter name. So using the super function doesn't make a lot of sense now. But let's say you have a lot of parameters that you already have created instance variables of, then using the super function makes a lot of sense. You can also call other functions from the parent class. So let's say super dot and let's call the sleeps function. And now let's run this. So we'll create an object of the cat class. So let's say c equals cat. And let's say the cat's name is Jerry. And the cat says meow. So we don't need to call the sleeps function because we are already calling that function using super. So let's run this and see if it works. And sure enough it works. We are able to call the sleeps function from the cat class. And we are also printing the print statement in the init function. So that is the super function. It allows you to call functions from the parent class. And with that, let's conclude the tutorial. In this tutorial, we looked at inheritance, the types of inheritance, and also the super function. So if you have any questions about these topics or any other Python topics, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, subscribe if you learned something, and see you guys until next time.